It was always going to be a turbulent touchdown, if not for the plane, then for a president as unbothered by diplomatic protocol as this one. Donald Trump managed to cause offence by tweeting before he had even left Air Force One. In this, the strangest of state visits to a country where many loathe him, governed by a Prime Minister heading for the exit herself, with one of those battling to succeed her, the Foreign Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, there to greet Mr. Trump on the tarmac. The President complained to him about the conduct of the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. Yesterday, the Mayor likened the President to a 20th century fascist. Today, Mr. Trump tweeted that Khan had been foolishly nasty to the UK's most important ally. He called the Mayor a stone-cold loser, similar, he wrote, to the dumb and incompetent Mayor of New York, but only half his height. This trip always had the potential to run away with itself, to leave the flunkies struggling to keep up. But the Prime Minister offered the President the honour 2.5 years ago, long before Trump had said Boris Johnson would make an excellent Prime Minister, or that Nigel Farage should help negotiate Brexit, saddling London with the biggest security operation of any state visit. The US Ambassador's residence, Winfield House, where the President is staying, is bristling with Secret Service agents. The President's entourage is believed to number 1,000 people, though he is mostly travelling by helicopter after some 250,000 people demonstrated against his brief visit last year. Before he flew to Buckingham Palace, he tweeted about his trade war with China, a foretaste perhaps of what could be a public warning that the UK should ban the Chinese firm Huawei from a future 5G network. For this is the most troubled special relationship in decades, the US even threatening that the crown jewels of that relationship, the sharing of intelligence, are now in jeopardy. Meeting the Queen at Buckingham Palace is not just a celebrity coup back home. For Donald Trump, it is deeply personal. He watched her coronation on television as a 6-year-old child alongside his mother Mary, a Scottish immigrant who was enthralled by the spectacle. With his family watching on, it was a moment for the President to be enthralled once again by the pomp and circumstance of old Europe laid on just for him. Though controversy never seems far away, John Bolton, his national security advisor, here to persuade British officials to be tougher, not just with China, but with Iran as well. The Queen has entertained far more controversial leaders: Ceausescu of Romania, Mugabe of Zimbabwe, Mobutu of Zaire. Yet her 113th state visitor has attracted a torrent of criticism. The Speaker, John Bercow, ruled out a Trump speech to Parliament well in advance. This afternoon, Jeremy Corbyn tweeted that protests planned for tomorrow are an opportunity to stand in solidarity with those Trump has attacked, including Sadiq Khan. Mr. Corbyn, Vince Cable of the Liberal Democrats, and Khan himself have declined the Queen's invitation to dinner tonight. But for the royal family, duty unavoidably calls. This afternoon, they showed the Trumps items from the royal collection. Family golfing memorabilia from Scotland provoked predictable interest. Prince Harry made a brief appearance, though his American wife, Meghan Markle, stayed away. The Duchess of Sussex's maternity leave, allowing her to escape an encounter with the President, who described her as nasty last week. The same word he used for the London Mayor today. Then on to the tomb of the unknown warrior at Westminster Abbey, a reminder of the joint sacrifice by British and American troops in the week of the 75th anniversary of D-Day. The Queen gave the President a gift of Churchill's history of the Second World War. When in doubt, Churchill and the war bind these nations, perhaps as much as the English language itself. We don't know if Prince Charles tried to persuade his guest over tea that climate change is not a hoax. America are each other's biggest investment partners, and that a state visit meant to foster and strengthen ties has exposed divisions already, with 2 more days of this to go.
Well, Donald Trump has just been tweeting about his visit so far, declaring London part of trip is going really well. The Queen and the entire royal family have been fantastic. The relationship with the United Kingdom is very strong. Tremendous crowds of well-wishers and people that love our country. Haven't seen any protests yet, but I'm sure the fake news will be working hard to find them. Great love all round. Also, big trade deal is possible once UK gets rid of the shackles. Already starting to talk. Jonathan Rugman is with me. Jonathan, what are we to make of all this? What priorities do you think there are in all this?
Well, I think a lot of issues are overshadowing this visit, this special relationship, in spite of the sort of North Korean-like descriptions of tremendous crowds of people being here to greet Donald Trump. First off, the Middle East. Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, is carrying a plan for peace between Israel and the Palestinians. British officials want to see a lot more of it, amid great scepticism that it's going to work. Secondly, Iran. We're in a very strange position where the UK may have to consider reimposing sanctions on Iran if it walks away from the nuclear deal, which America walked away from a year ago with no sanctions.
But is Britain going to walk away?
Well, it's under an enormous pressure from John Bolton to do that. He has been talking to Mark Sedwill, his opposite number here, as National Security Advisor. But I think the big elephant in the room is the Huawei issue and its role in the future 5G network. I'm told by British officials that no decision has been taken, that it may be discussed again by the National Security Council either later this week or early next week, but be in no doubt the Americans are putting the British under enormous pressure. It's almost like diplomatic blackmail. If you go into business with Huawei of China, we might withhold intelligence sharing. And for those who say that Donald Trump won't do that he won't cut off his nose to spite his face, I would treat that with a great deal of skepticism, because we just don't know what Donald Trump is going to do. Tomorrow we have this press conference with Theresa May, the Prime Minister. We don't know how public on any of this Donald Trump is going to go. I suspect that he sees the Conservative leadership race as a political version of The Apprentice, and he's dying to choose a contestant and endorse them, and his advisors will be trying to restrain him from doing that. There is very little time that Theresa May is spending with Donald Trump tomorrow one-on-one. Their delegations are going to be with them, although the Prime Minister will be giving the President a guided tour of the Churchill Cabinet War Rooms. And as I said in my report, if in doubt, when the special relationship is in trouble, go back to Winston Churchill and go back to the joint sacrifice of the Second World War.
Jonathan Rugman. Now, last time Donald Trump was in the United Kingdom, hundreds of thousands of protesters turned out on the streets. Tonight you can hear some of the small but noisy crowd of demonstrators just behind me. Not fake news, it's under the slogan, "Spoil Trump's banquet." Anya Pop is there.
Yeah, well, it's very lively, John, down here, but there's actually only a few hundred protesters, which is tiny in compared to the hundreds of thousands which blocked off central London on President Trump's visit here last year. Now, the President and his family are due to dine here with the royal family later this evening, but the protesters here say the protest is as much about showing the UK government how they feel about the President as the President himself. I spoke with one police officer down here earlier, and he said in the briefing this morning they were specifically warned that when the President rolled into Buckingham Palace to watch out for anyone with milkshakes. Now, you probably remember in the last few months people have thrown milkshakes at politicians they disagree with, but what effect a milkshake would have on the President's heavily armoured vehicle is unclear. The main protest is scheduled for tomorrow, where thousands are expected to line the streets of London, and there'll be some famous faces there too. Jeremy Corbyn has already confirmed that he'll address protesters, and Trump will be there too, well, in the form of the Trump baby balloon that you might remember from last year's protest. Of course, the President didn't see it last time he was here because he didn't make it to London, but this time there's a chance he will. Now, today is the pomp, tomorrow is the politics and the bigger protests, but whether the protesters will be able to get anywhere near to the President, probably not, but this time they hope at least he'll hear them.